Thanks very much, Isaac. It's great to be here in the other valley, the Ottawa Valley. I grew up in, and I live in, and I represent the Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia, and I love rural Canada. As somebody who grew up in rural Canada, and in fact, Cheverie, where I grew up, Cheverie would make Renfrew seem like New York City. I mean, Egan would be like Toronto compared to Cheverie. My parents had a little grocery store in Cheverie, a little red and white grocery store, and for 23 years our family lived in the house attached to that store. And I consider myself to be a very lucky Canadian because of the fact that they worked so hard, and they grew up in rural Nova Scotia during the Great Depression. Dad from a family of 10, Mom from a family of 6. And they didn't have the opportunity to finish high school. They had to quit school to go to work, to start a business. They worked day and night all those years that their kids could go to university and could have a future. And I've never taken that for granted. In fact, my parents are pretty frugal people as well. In fact, they've been married for 57 years, and my mother still uses the same paraffin for her jams and jellies. It's a wonder we didn't get botulism growing up. Beyond that, I mean, they're cheap about everything. It goes beyond frugality. My father called me a few months ago and he said, you know, your mother and I were talking about what if something happens to one of us, we should plan ahead. And I said, Dad, you're both healthy. This is silly. Mom's, in her late 70s. You're only in your mid 80s. You're healthy and active. And he said, no, we wanted to talk about this. And we called it into the Hants Journal, and if you book ahead at the Hants Journal for obituaries, you can save money. and he said that in fact the first 5 words are free in your obituary. And I said, well, and he said, Verna's written my obituary. And I said, you're kidding, what is it? And he said, Clifford's dead, truck for sale. But the fact is that I represent a very lucky generation, and I don't take that luck for granted. We live in a very lucky country, and we should never take that for granted. We have to earn our luck. Every generation. We have a responsibility to future generations to work hard to build an even more socially progressive, economically prosperous, and environmentally responsible and sustainable society. That's what liberals believe in, and that's what I believe in. I entered politics at the age of 29 in the 1997 election, and I worked before that in business in both the U.S. and New York and Toronto, and I chose politics because while there's other ways to make a living, politics you can really make a difference. And that's what I think it's about, is making a difference. And that's what the Liberal Party needs to be about, is about making a difference. And Stephen Harper, his ambition is an ambition to be Prime Minister. Our ambition needs to be an ambition to build a better Canada. And that's what we're all here to do tonight. And I tell you, when I think of Cheryl Gallant in that House of Commons, and I think of the kind of representation that people here deserve, they're not getting it with Cheryl Gallant. I represent a riding with supply management. I understand the importance of agriculture in rural and small town Canada. When Cheryl Gallant 2 months ago voted against supply management in a free vote in the House of Commons, she voted against the interests of her constituents. In a day and age when we need to fight like heck for supply management and WTO negotiations, our Canadian government voted against supply management in the House of Commons. And shame on Cheryl Gallant for not standing up for her constituents and for supply management. When I said fight like heck, didn't just mean heck, I meant heck back then. In fact, I spent a good many mornings at the House of Commons gym with Heck Cloutier, and Heck Cloutier was one of the fittest members of Parliament ever to darken the door of the House of Commons. But Heck Cloutier would never have voted against the interests of his constituents. He would have been fighting for the people here. And we need a member of Parliament representing your interests and defending not just the interests of this riding, which is important, but also defending Canadian values. In the next federal election, I want to lead a Liberal Party that out-progresses the NDP socially, out-innovates the Conservatives economically, and out-hopes everybody.